So let's get started with the whole story. Basically, there was dungeon testing on the PTR and so on and so forth. As a result, Blizzard has now drawn some conclusions, and the first thing we see is that Frosty Frostika is already getting nerfed quite a bit. So all abilities, 10 less damage, melee damage, 10 less Icy Death Torrent, Remorseless Winter 35 respectively. 30 and Obliterate nerfed by 10, so that's already hitting pretty hard. And it's the same story with Unholy Decay. First of all damage is reduced by 8 across the board. Then Lord of the Dead, 25%, Magus of the Dead, 15%, all your ghouls. 15%, Putrefy, Necrotic Coil, Pestilence. 25%, your Virulent Plague, 25%. Phew, so that's really quite a lot. Pretty significant. So besides those 8% that are already reduced, many abilities are nerfed by up to 25%. And I could imagine that the spec will perform significantly worse because of this. Otherwise, with the Riders of the Apocalypse, we also see nerfs for the Death March of Whitemane, and his undead damage is also reduced, so that's pretty significant. Then Demon Hunter Devourer is devoured. 10 more damage Havoc, on the other hand, 55% less damage. You have to say the Devourer was seriously nerfed at the beginning of the PTR cycle. They've raised it a bit again now. Otherwise, we see here that Boomkin is one of the big winners. Accordingly, they also say here that they want to increase Boomkin's damage in every type of content. All damage has been increased by 3.5 for now. Moonfire 10%, Sunfire 10%, Shooting Stars 10%, Wrath 10%, Starfire 20%. Umbral Brilliance increases the damage of Wrath and Starfire by 12 instead of 10, and your Meteors do 15 more. We also have the Apex talents included as well. These are the little sun and moon bolts that shoot out when you enter an eclipse. They also deal 10 more damage. And the T-Story reset bonus gives another 15 more damage to Starfall, so that's actually pretty crazy. Keeper of the Grove is also getting another buff, however, up to this point it just hasn't been played. That's why we will see if that really makes a big difference. For Feral, there's only a small change for the cooldown manager. Resto Druid, your Mastery Heal bonus has been increased by 15. In exchange, the tier set is getting a tiny little nerf. Then we have the Evoker, Scale Commander. Here we have these squadrons. The Pyre does 40 more damage, and maneuverability, the DOT effect, 40 more as well. Preservation, the Inner Flame is getting a tiny little nerf. Other than that, not much is happening there. We also have adjustments to the Flameshaper here. All in all, there are nerfs there as well. I find that interesting because Evoker heal hasn't really been that strong up to this point. On the other hand, Beast Mastery hunters among you can be happy. The auto shots, 20 more damage, Cobra Shot, 30 more. Serpentine Strikes increases the damage of Cobra Shot crits by 20% instead of 50%, so that's going down a bit. Likewise, Cobra Senses is getting nerfed. In return, the Barbed Shot also does 12 less damage. It will be interesting to see if it all balances out in the end. So, according to Blizzard, Cobra Shot is supposed to be toned down a bit. In return, the overall damage profile is supposed to be strengthened a bit. We will see. Marksmanship here too, auto shot, 20 more rapid fire, 20 more aimed shot, 50 more volley, 20% arcane shot, 15%. Multi-shot, 80 more damage, and kill shot, 25. There are some really hefty buffs here. Just like for Black Arrow with the Dark Ranger, so marksmanship could maybe become the new best spec for hunters. Fire Mage, all abilities, 12 more damage, and Pyroclasm now lasts 20 instead of 15 seconds. For Frost, the 4-piece set bonus was just adjusted a bit. Mistweaver Monk's Spinning Crane Kick, of course not Tiger Palm, does 10 more damage. For Windwalker, there are mainly a few buffs for defense. We can see there are very many changes for Holy. And we already covered that in another video. The talent tree was also thoroughly reworked. All in all, almost every ability gets 5 to even 50 more healing. And basically all heals, so basically a so-called aura buff, have been increased by another 8. That's pretty strong. Paladin just got a few fixes, same as Red. A few fixes and 6 less damage overall. So the Reds seem to have been a bit too strong. Disc Priest, the power word, shield 30 less absorb. The buffed atonement, let's call it that, the thing where you go up in the air, 30 more healing and damage. Otherwise, all healing and absorption increased by 10. And your atonement now heal for 32% of the damage instead of 30%. So discipline is getting buffed, just like holy. All healing increased by 10. Shadow, all abilities deal 8% more damage, and Shadow already looked pretty good before. So that could continue like this. Enhancement Shaman just got a few fixes. For the Resto Shaman, Acid Rain, which is the damage effect from Healing Rain, deals 50% more damage. But now it only ticks every 2 seconds instead of every second. In the end, I think it should end up being about the same, more or less. There are also a few buff bug fixes here. The Affliction Warlock 2-piece set bonus was nerfed, but Destruction gets 10% more damage overall. For the Arms Warrior, we see melee auto attacks dealing 100% more damage, also a tiny buff for the new 2-piece set. Colossus also gets buffs for Slayer as well as for Slayer's Dominance. And for Fury, we see Bloodbath. The initial damage is reduced by 12%, but the bleed damage is increased by 300%. And last but not least, we have the Prot Warrior, where the set bonuses have been adjusted and there's a bit more defense, even if it's very, very little. So as we can see, there are a lot of adjustments, especially as someone who plays Boomkin. I'm relatively satisfied with it, I would say. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how the Death Knights will perform, because there's quite a significant damage reduction on top of that. But you also have to say it's not over yet. It's possible that Blizzard will make more adjustments. With that said, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, have a good one and take care.